Good morning, everybody. Are you ready to be a follower of Jesus? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to keep talking about the Sermon on the Mount. So hang on. All right, so good morning. Here we are. I'm in my office here at Amazing Love Sanctuary in Arvada, Colorado. I hope you're hanging on to this part of the broadcast, and we're going to talk about some stuff. Good morning, David. How are you doing? Glad that you're on here with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about keep reading through the Sermon on the Mount because it kind of speaks for itself. I don't have to really say much. I just kind of let it, you can just read it and let it talk to you and let it open itself up to you. And all of a sudden you have this amazing picture of who Jesus was and is and what it takes to be a follower of Jesus. So we started in Matthew chapter 5 last week. Hold on a minute here. I keep forgetting this is my thing with love and grace. So living in love and grace. I always start out with this, and then lately I just kind of forgot about it. But anyway, just the way I've always started it with reading out of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for self. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strut, doesn't have a swelled head, doesn't force itself on others, isn't always me first, doesn't fly off the handle, doesn't keep score of the sins of others, and doesn't revel when others grovel. Love takes pleasure in the flowering of truth. Love puts up with anything, trusts God always looks for the best, and never looks back. Love keeps going to the end. Love never dies. But for right now, until that completeness, we have three things to do that lead us towards the consummation. Trust steadily in God. Hope unswervingly. Love extravagantly. And the best of the three is love. Forgot to read that the last couple times. That's the definition of love. And if you really are concerned about what God looks like, what Jesus looks like, that's the description. You could insert God into every where it says love, because it says God is love, or you can insert Jesus. So we're going to read a little bit from the Sermon on the Mount because I think it really speaks to our hearts where we're at. And this is really one of the struggles that I think a lot of Christians have. Don't think, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 17, don't think I've come to abolish the law and the prophets. I have come not to abolish them, but to fulfill them. The truth is, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter of the law, not even the smallest part of a letter, will be done away with until it's all fulfilled. That's why whoever breaks the least significant of these commands and teaches others to do the same will be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever fulfills and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. I tell you, unless your sense of justice surpasses that of the religious scholars and the Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. You've heard that our ancestors were told, no killing, and every murderer will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that everyone who is angry with his sister or brother is subject to justice or judgment. Anyone who says, sister or brother, I spit in your face, will be subject to the Sanhedrin, and anyone who vilifies them with name-calling will be subject to the fires of Gehenna. So this is this great story. And Jesus is explaining what law, starting to kind of explore what law and grace look like. So what he's saying here is, here's the law, the Old Testament law, the Torah. It's filled with rules and regulations and laws that every one of us as human beings are going to break. It's just inevitable. We're human. We cannot live up to that law. And Jesus came in and said that he is the fulfillment of that law. So the power in that, or the strength in that, or the answer to that isn't following more rules. It isn't getting better at following the rules. Because what Jesus is explaining is, it's impossible to follow the rules. It's impossible to follow the law. And anyone who tries to force somebody into that little box is going to be miserable. I've known a number of Christians, believers over the years, who felt that they just couldn't please God. They didn't pray enough. They didn't give enough. They didn't go to church enough. They didn't all the rules that we have in front of us, they didn't do them good enough. So God must be angry with us. That's not the truth. He goes on, verse 21. You've heard that our ancestors were told, no killing, and every murderer will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that everyone who is angry with sister or brother is subject to judgment. Anyone who says to sister or brother, I spit in your face, will be subject to the Sanhedrin, and anyone who vilifies them with name-calling will be subject to the fires of Gehenna. Now, the fires of Gehenna were a dump. It wasn't. This isn't talking about literal hell. If you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your sister or brother has against you, leave your gift there at the altar. Go to be reconciled with them, and then come and offer your gift. Lose no time in settling with your opponents. Do so while still on the way to the courthouse with them. Otherwise, your opponents may hand you over to the judge, and the judge hand you over to the bailiff, who will throw you into prison. I warn you, you won't get out until you have paid the last penny. You've heard the commandment, no committing adultery. But I tell you, those who look lustfully on others have already committed adultery in their heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and throw it away. It's better to lose part of your body than to have it cast into the dump or Gehenna. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It's better to lose part of your body than to have it all cast into the dump. It was also said, whenever a couple divorces, each partner must get a decree of divorce. But I tell you that everyone who divorces, except because of adultery, forces the spouse to commit adultery. Those who marry divorced also commit adultery. So you see what he's doing. He's explaining what the law is and how vast the law is and how how overwhelming it is. It's impossible. Even when you think I don't do one thing, your heart, your mind, your soul, something in you pushes you to the edge. And the law becomes an overwhelming burden. And that's what Jesus is really discussing, this overwhelming burden. Just when you think you got it all together, you fail miserably. Again, you've heard that our ancestors were told, don't break your vow. Fulfill all oaths made to our God. But I tell you not to swear oaths at all. Don't swear by heaven, for it's God's throne. Don't swear by the earth, for it is God's footstool. Don't swear by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great ruler. And don't swear by your own head. You can't make a single hair white or black. Say yes when you mean yes, and no when you mean no. Anything beyond that is from the evil one. You've heard the commandment, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, offer no resistance. Whatsoever you're confused with when you're confronted with violence, when someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn and offer the other. If anyone wants to sue you for your shirt, hand them your coat as well. Should anyone press you into service, go 1 mile, go 2 miles. Give to those who beg from you, and don't turn your back on those who want to borrow from you. You see how amazing the law, how vast the law is. It burdens us down. Cut your hand off, pluck your eye out. Even when you do those things, it's not enough. He goes on in verse 43. You've heard it said, love your neighbor, but hate your enemy. People do that all the time. We live by that. Now here's where Jesus comes in, kind of at telling the story slant. He comes in at another angle and cuts us off right at the knees when we're sitting there almost automatically thinking, I've got to follow the law. I've got to follow the rules. This is the rule. And Jesus comes and tells it slant. But I tell you, see, the law let you hate your enemies. The law let you persecute or attack your enemies. Jesus comes at another angle. But I tell you, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. That's not the law. That's the fulfillment. That's what the law wanted to accomplish, but it didn't. What the law accomplished was burdensome. What the law accomplished was hard work. And every time I think I got it together, I fell flat on my face and fell miserably, failed miserably. Love your enemies. Pray for your persecutors. This will prove that you are children of God. See, sometimes we think the only way I can prove that I'm really a child of God is, or that we're believers or we're spiritual, is that we have all the answers. And we can point our fingers at us, we can point our fingers at them. The ones that don't measure up, the ones who don't do enough, the ones who don't pray enough, or the ones who aren't like you. There's a mistake we make sometimes when we try to look at things that are the difference between the righteous and the self-righteous. Righteousness is right living. This is righteousness. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. That is righteousness. Self-righteousness is when I think I've got it all together and I have the answer and everyone has to measure up to my standards. That's self-righteousness. And we fail just by stating that, by believing that, by acting that, we fail miserably. That's self-righteousness. For God makes the sun rise on the bad and the good alike. God's rain falls on the just and the unjust. If you love those who love you, what good is that? What merit is there in that? Don't tax collectors do as much? And if you greet only your sisters and brothers, what is so praiseworthy about that? Don't Gentiles do as much? Therefore, be perfect, as God in heaven is perfect. So here's the idea, and Jesus is going to kind of build into that, and we're going to talk about righteousness and self-righteousness. We're going to talk about humility going forward, humility and pride. And there's so much that we need to learn. And if we're gonna follow Jesus, here's what we have to do. We have to look at Jesus as a reflection of who God is. We have to look at Jesus as a reflection of how God speaks to us. Look at Jesus as a reflection of how God deals with other people. It's a powerful lesson. If we're going to be followers of Jesus, it's not about the rules. It's not about saying the right prayers. I was thinking about this the other day. When I was a kid growing up, I think I said, there's kind of a discussion lately about, how we become Christians. People think, well, you got to say the right prayer. You got to say, you got to ask Jesus to come into your heart. When Jesus was walking and hanging out with fishermen, when he was hanging out with tax collectors, when he was hanging out with drunkards, people who were looked down upon, he never sat with them and said, now I want you to ask me into your heart. He never once said, I want you to follow my rules. I want you to follow the law. I want you to look at the Torah, read the 10 Commandments, and follow every single one of them. He never said that. What he said was so simple and so powerful and so life-changing. And I believe he says that to you and I today. Follow me. Drop your nets, get out of your boats, and follow me. And he did. And they did. They followed him. It cost them everything. It cost them their livelihood. And they followed him. It cost them probably respect within their community. Hey, can you imagine what happened to Peter and all those fishermen? They're not here anymore, and their boats are right there, and their nets are right there. I wonder where they're at. They started following Jesus. It's a journey. It's a life. It's a path. It's walking. It's giving up everything. It's dropping your nets and following Jesus. So what are the things that are holding you back today? Well, Reverend Sam, I haven't been to church in years. I haven't read the Bible in years. I don't read the Bible enough. I don't pray enough. It's okay. You're exactly who Jesus wants, is saying, follow me. He's saying that. Follow me. And let's go. Let's walk this path together. It's an amazing journey. Yeah, David, it's a long road. It's a rocky one. But you know what? It's fulfilling. It's fulfilling. And Kelly, it's worth every single moment. You are right. So this is Jesus. And this is what I want you to see, is a picture of Jesus. And see his words. I've met a few men in my life, a few people that took a lot of pride in the fact that they were men of their word. If they said it, they did it. If they promised it, they fulfilled it. If they said they'd be there, they were there. Jesus was a man of his word. And he said, follow me. So drop your nets today, whatever they are. Whatever the things that hold you back, drop those nets. Whatever the things that you get tangled up in, drop those nets and follow him. He's not asking you to do anything else but follow him. And it'll all work out. I've learned in my life 38 years ago almost, when I was ordained, I preached a sermon and I used the text from Romans, that all things work together for good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose. I have learned in my years, and I don't understand how, but all things work together for good. If you make a commitment to follow Jesus, it'll all work out. It will all work out. If you make a commitment to walk alongside Jesus, it will all work out. He's not asking you to be perfect. He's not asking you to measure up to some phony standard that you've set in your mind. He's asking you to follow him with all of your flaws, with all of your struggles, with all of your failures, with every mistake you've ever made. He's saying, follow me. That's all he's saying. So we're going to learn from this. Not how to follow more rules. I don't want any more rules than I impose in my own life. I'm this weird creature of habit, and so I'm trying to get, eat better, take care of myself. So I have these things that I eat, and so it's this way that I eat. And if I veer from that, then I'm going to mess it all up. So I like rules. I like a box. So I get up in the morning and I eat a certain amount of things, the same thing every single morning. No variety, same thing. I do the same thing for lunch. And I do the same thing for my snacks. And I'm losing some weight and everything, but it's hard work. When it comes to being a follower of Jesus, it's just taking that first step. Follow Jesus. And it has nothing to do with, I'll say it again, has nothing to do with going to church, has nothing to do with reading the Bible. It has nothing to do with loyalty to a pastor. It has everything to do with just following Jesus. So learn about him. Hear his words. And you know what? It'll change your life. It will change your life. Well, that's it for today. I wanted to try to do this more often, and so I'll get on here more often, and hopefully you'll just watch for that. Eventually I'll get myself disciplined enough to do it at a very specific time. Like some people, I know like Kelly Davis. Kelly, you're on all the time, and I love that. And I think it's amazing that you have that discipline. I get sidetracked and I get caught up in all the busyness of the day. So what I did today was I came into my office, and this is the first thing I wanted to do so I can get it done. And I even have the ability to go on and record it, and all I got to do is play it the next day. But that feels kind of weird to me. So anyway, I want to close with my forever love commitment, and I hope it blesses you and encourages you. I read this years and years and years ago. Kelly. Yeah, so the forever love commitment, and I want to close with this. I want you to know that I'm committed to you. You will never knowingly suffer at my hands. I will never say or do anything knowingly to hurt you. I will always, in every circumstance, seek to help you and support you. And if you're down and I can lift you up, I'll do that. There's so many people on here, on these broadcasts. They're not professional ministers. They're just people who started when the pandemic happened, and I'm kind of getting away from that. They just started posting on Facebook and YouTube and just speaking from their heart. And I love those people that are sharing in that ministry with we share it together with Kelly and David and Bob, and we just get on and do it. Because if you're down, we want to lift you up. That's what we're doing this. Anything that you need, I'll share it with you. And if need be, I'll give it to you. No matter what I find out about you, no matter what happens in the future, good or bad, my commitment to you will never change. And there's nothing you can do about it. If you don't have to respond. I love you, and that's what it means. Love, acceptance, and forgiveness. I hope you have an amazing, amazing day. If you need anything, please remember that we are here for you always. And, that's our commitment to you. So have a blessed day. I encourage you, share this, pass it on. There's a YouTube channel with the same thing. Share it with somebody who might need this good word. And I'll see you at the next broadcast, part 3 of Jesus and the Sermon on the Mountain. God bless you. Bye.